Today we're going to learn about inventory management by constructing rescue bags. So it's the zombie apocalypse, you're going out to look for the injured, and you need a go bag that has the necessary equipment. As we look at inventory management, we are considering what's called sub-assemblies. And sub-assemblies are things that you assemble that go within the bigger item that you're assembling. So in this case, we're going to create a rescue mission bag, and it's going to have a bag for treating fractures. So you sprain your ankle, you break your leg. It's going to have a laceration bag, so what happens if we have cuts? And it's going to have an exposure bag. So what if people have been out in the elements for a while? How are we going to help treat them? So these are sub-assemblies within the overall go bag that we'll use when we go on raids and missions. So in a normal face-to-face class, we would be having you do this. You would assemble this bag yourself. Unfortunately, since we can't be together in person, I'm going to assemble the bag, and your job is going to be to track the time and the components that go within it. So boss. We have had our group go on raids, and they have found supplies at various grocery stores and stores, and so they brought in this box of items. Now we're going to assemble the items, and what we need to know is how long it's going to take to put together the bags so that we can provide enough bags for all of our teams. So we're going to start our assembly, and first we're going to do a treating fracture bag. So we need to build a splint. And our splint, of course, you know, the teams just brought everything in one giant box, so who knows where things are. But in order to build a splint, what we're going to need is we're going to need to put together 2 loops that we could then, if we found a board or something, we could put a loop around the board, put a loop around the bottom board, and that would help stabilize. So I'm going to need 3 of zip ties for the first. I'm going to need 3 more zip ties for the bottom piece. So I'm going to need to build these loops. All right, so how long does it take to assemble a loop? Well, the loop's got to be big enough to tighten around anybody we find. So we need to be able to take our loop, and we'll pre-build them. So that way we can put someone's leg through it and a board and tighten as necessary. So we have 1 loop. All right, we're gonna need a second loop. You know, if you put these in wrong, they don't tighten. So we gotta make sure we put them in the right way. All right, so we have here, maybe. It's not going in. I think I assembled it the wrong direction. So here we have our loops. So 1 for the bottom of the board, 1 for the top of the board. So now we have our 2 loops that are going to be part of our splint. The next thing we're going to need in the treating fracture bag is we're going to need to build a sling for any injuries. So I found this old shirt, can't even read what it says anymore, and I'm going to turn it into a sling. So what do I need to turn into a sling? I need to be able to tie 2 ends around my neck. So I essentially need to build like a bandana kind of shape. All right, so we would tie this. Oh, I need a little person's sling. All right. So we need something that's going to fit around and and be able to put your arm through. So apparently my kit is only for rescuing children because I have a little tiny sling. All right, what else do we need in this bag? Well, if we're going to be treating fractures, we're going to need a knife. Somewhere in this kit, our survival team has got a knife as well. So that means that our treating fracture bag, we need a case to put it in. So we're going to put this sub-assembly of our pieces of our splint and our sling and our knife for doing some surgery all in this bag. So here we have our sub-assembly. All right, the other component that was going to go in here is treating lacerations. So I'm going to need some bandages. So I'm going to need to cut some fabric, and in fact I'm going to need 3 strips of fabric that I can cut long enough to be able to tie around someone's arm or leg. So I'm just going to cut some strips here. All right, so I think I have one. I can tie that around a leg or an arm, so 1 bandage. I need 3. Okay, so I'm going to cut another long strip. Okay, so here I can bandage someone's arm there, so I have now 2 bandages. I need 3. Find a piece of this fabric that's still intact. All right, so here we have a 3rd bandage. So we have our 3 bandages. Okay, what else do we need? Well, if someone gets cut, we will need to sew it closed. So I'm going to need some thread. Okay, so we're going to need to sew it up. So we're going to need 2 spools of thread. So I have some different thread here. And because we're going to divvy up the thread across all the different survival teams, I need to take this thread and I need to put it onto some dowels. Okay, so we're going to put it on these little pieces of wood here so that we can divvy up all of the thread. All right, so I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to do 5 arm lengths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arm lengths, okay? And I'm going to take this thread that I've just done and I'm going to wrap it around this little dowel here. So this will be the supply for 1 bag. We'll have some thread, we'll have some different kinds of thread, but we don't want to send all of our thread with 1 team or else the other teams won't have anything. So I gotta wrap all of this around this dowel. Still going. This is where a building team could come in handy because we could divvy up the work instead of me having to do all of this myself. All right, almost there for 1. All right, so I have created 1 spool of thread. Now I need to do a second one. So I have a different type of thread here. So again, 5 arms length. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gotta have the rest available for the other teams. I have another piece of wood that I'm going to wrap it around. So we're going to wrap around here, all 5 arm lengths. Great place to have an automated process. This would be very tiring to do all day. Alright. Can't have my thread all in knots. It doesn't help if we're trying to rescue someone if we can't sew up their wounds because our thread is all in knots. All right. All right, and I have my second spool of thread done and ready to go. All right, so in this kit, we had our bandages, we have our 2 spools of thread. Now we're going to need some needles. All right, so how many needles do we need? We're going to need to have 2 needles to go with our 2 spools. So here's 1 needle, and here's another. Now, of course, we can't just have them laying around in the bag, so we're going to need them to be on something, attached to something, so we don't lose them. So I'm going to take this piece of cardboard here and use that to help keep my needles intact. So I'm going to put the needles into this board here, and that way I can have them in my kit. Okay, so what else do I need for treating lacerations? I'm going to need gauze, all right? So for gauze here, we need to have 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I poked myself with the needle, so I think I need the gauze right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And then we're going to need some Band-Aids. All right. I think the raid team found some Band-Aids. And we need different sizes of Band-Aids. So I need 10 Band-Aids. And I need at least 3 different sizes. So we have this size here. We have that size there. Okay, I need to find a 3rd size. Well, this kit doesn't seem to have any other size. Nope, just more of these other ones. Alright, I don't have a 3rd size in this bag, so I'm going to have to go find it in another one. So let's see what else they came up with. Oh, here we go. Here's some little round ones. So now I need 10. So I got 3 little round ones here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 7. If you add up these size, and then we have our little ones. So I now have 10 bandages or Band-Aids. So now I need to assemble this sub-assembly. So I'm going to put it here. And we need to put it into a bag. Okay, so in our bag here, we're going to have our bandages. We're going to have our gauze. We're going to have our Band-Aids. Oops, I dropped one on the ground. And we need our 2 spools of thread. And we need to have our needles. So we'll fill that up here, and we have our 2nd sub-assembly. So our 3rd sub-assembly is for treating exposure. So this would be out in the elements. They are going to need medication. We're going to need a bottle of water. We're going to need some granola bars. And we're going to need some kind of light source. So let's start with our medication. So our team has rated a number of pharmacies and they found all kinds of drugs, which we have here, but we have to make sure that we have the right ones that are needed. So we're going to need some containers. So here we have 2 containers to separate out the different types of drugs that we're going to need. So we're going to need 5 of the red or the purple kind of drugs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's one type of drug. And now we're going to need the kind of drug that comes in green or yellow. I don't know what types of drugs these are. But we need 5 of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of those drugs. So for this bag for exposure, we're going to have our 2 sets of medication. The next thing we're going to need is a bottle of water. So our team had rated the grocery store, so we have some water. And we need a granola bar. In case people haven't eaten in a while, we're going to need to be able to feed them. Okay, and then we're going to need some kind of light source. So they've been out in the dark, we have to find a way back. So we need a light source. So what are we gonna do? Well, we happen to have raided the dollar store. So we have here our glow stick that we can use to help find the rest of our team and to get those who have been exposed back. So we need to fill up that bag for our exposure bag. So we have our light source, our granola bar, we have our water, and we have our medications. So we now have 3 sub-assemblies. We have the exposure bag, we have the laceration bag, and we have the fracture bag. So we have these 3 sub-assemblies that go into our single go bag for any parties that are going out. So we've created one emergency kit that has 3 sub-assemblies. The challenge is going to be to figure out how many bags will we need and how many of each of those components, the sub-assemblies, the pieces inside, will we need, and when do we need them in order to prepare enough bags when we need them.